Okay, how ethical is it to spy on the UN leadership?
Oh, that's an appalling one.
Hang on.
That's a shock. The only time this is
that's an oxymoron, isn't it?
Come on.
Spying on what?
The only other time that shows a precedence for this was in the heart of the Cold War during Khrushchev's reign of the Soviet Union, where you had diplomats spying on other diplomats, the UN being the place, the body.
China will be running intelligence operations, but we're not seeing leaks out of them. Right, what we're seeing...
They shoot their leakers, that's why.
That's why Julian Assange is still alive. He'd be an organ donor by now if he was Chinese.
It was bad enough for the French to actually bug aircraft seats and trying to listen to UN
the
officials.
French will be running intelligence operations. They ran one here.
So who wins, who loses by WikiLeaks revealing American secrets?
Oh, I think the public wins in this sense, that we start to actually get an idea of what the reality is inside classified areas and these silos.
Cam, who wins, who loses?
Well, who will win ultimately will be the guys who develop encryption algorithms and those sorts of things, because what it's done by leaking it out there and getting the information out there, it's forced all of these governments around the world and on the other side as well to say, whoa, hang on, we've based all of our communications on these technologies and we haven't really updated this information, so we really need to bury it all again.
So Mark Zuckerberg wins. Thank you, panel. Issue 2. John Key holds a digital interview on Stuff and releases policy for the 2011 election on Benny bashing and state asset sales. Why does it seem that Facebook is suddenly the preferred vehicle for policy release now? And why is Don Brash attacking John Key by claiming Mary still get too much? Selwyn, this online interview was supposed to be 2 hours long. It was cut down to 45 minutes. And questions ranged from what are you having for lunch to Holden or Ford. In between these deep philosophical questions, there were 2011 policy releases on welfare and state assets. Is such an uncritical medium the right place for the media to be holding the leader of the country to account?
Well, it provided a platform for the Prime Minister to just chuck out a few little pieces of bread.
There's nothing wrong with that.
As the politicians refer to and the press miners refer to, feeding the seagulls.
Right.
And there was a few little tidbits, but in amongst that, I don't care the medium they used, Bomber. In amongst that, there were a few really indicative kind of positions, and one of those being that it is still very sensitive to the right-wing ideologies that the former leader, Don Brash, would have had advanced should he have been there. It is more comfortable remaining in that centrist area, and that was the big message that came from that.
Being left of centre, actually.
Cam, after your good friend John Key lied to the nation about not raising GST, why would anyone believe a word he said about not privatising state assets? He's promised full-bodied, creamy National Party in the second term. No more Labour light crap.
No,
why believe him now?
I don't believe he's promised that at all. In fact, if you look at the issue of asset sales, it was Labour who was creepy with the way that they released their policy on that. They slid it out under the Pike River.
So you trust
very quietly,
after
David
GST, after the GST
we're going to look at privatisation.
He's being pragmatic. He's being pragmatic.
And he did it after the fourth explosion.
Being wonderfully pragmatic. Wonderfully pragmatic.
From a
why would you believe John Key after the GST?
I don't believe John Key. He's left of centre.
Right, so you don't believe him.
He's left of centre. I mean, he was elected to bring in change. He was elected to.
Are you loving that change?
That's what you lot had Don Brash in for, though, didn't you?
Yeah.
He lost the election.
And so Don Brash makes a speech last week at Orewa. He reiterates his core beliefs that are in line with the National Party's core beliefs of individual responsibility and all those
second-class citizens,
and all of a sudden
marries third-class citizens. Yep, those core National Party policies.
No, that's your spin on it, Bomber, but that's not the case. And he gets lambasted for saying, well, hang on a second, let's have a look at what are the outcomes here.
So you would believe John Key?
He gets lambasted because his views are no longer palatable with the actual majority of the voting public.
No, because that's
and
how
the
far
National
left
Party,
the country
to its
has
credit,
gone.
actually knows that.
Selwyn. And Nikki Harger's The Hollow Men's leaked
still
emails,
bringing that up.
which I'm surprised Cam wasn't actually mentioned in. National Party strategists referred to a term called inoculating issues, where unpalatable policy was inoculated by an early statement saying, oh, we'll look into it later. One of those issues, of course, was privatisation last time. The advice being you shut down any discussion by announcing you'll do something. Is John Key inoculating privatisation, or is he being honest?
The former. Clearly what he's doing is he's positioning so that anybody that is building some sort of opposition to where National is going to be positioning post next election.
Privatisation's on the agenda.
Trying to
Labor brought it
dilute
up.
that argument down. He has taken the wind out of the sails of the Labor Party if it was going to attack National on a platform of privatisation of state assets. But you still have to look in the detail of what Key was saying here.
Yes.
You're not talking necessarily about no privatisation here. You're talking about the commercialisation of state assets that would be floated out basically on a share market kind of basis. And then he is saying that the state, by and large, would remain a majority shareholder, but it's not saying they're not going to flick off significant proportions of state-owned assets.
Cam, hasn't the right wing won the privatisation PR war? Baby boomers and Gen Xers who remember the horror that was Roger Douglas and Ruth Richardson balk at privatisation, but Generation Y spent a decade under consumerism and think corporations care about them. They actually think Disney and Coke and Nike love them. Tell them it's being privatised and they think it's great. The future is corporations uber alles, isn't it?
Well, the thing is here is that privatisation back then, we were in dire economic straits.
We're in dire economic straits now.
We are now, but
worse.
But actually, corporatisation is probably a better word than privatisation. But let's talk privatisation. The rationale behind why you look at some of these things is completely different. You're not hocking, as the Labor Party says, hocking off the family silver. What you're doing is looking at whether or not a government should be in this line of business. And a classic example of that is VTNZ, vehicle testing. Why is the government owning a commercial enterprise for testing vehicles for warrant of fitness that are competing with private people at the same level? There's no social good associated with that.
I think where National is going to have to go, though, it's going to have to appease its more ACT-leaning members of its caucus and certainly its stakeholder groups.
I mean, we can't possibly say that ACC is working,
what we will see in
the
next term is, should National be re-elected, is more likely an appeasement of ACT-type policies where instead of flogging off the ownership of such things, you own the bricks and mortar, but you flick off the actual running of those to franchises that are picked up by the corporate sector. They're not interested in assets, they're interested in the services. There's more return for the buck in that area.
Absolutely. Okay, to both of you, why was Don Brash attacking Key last week with his Mary still get too much? Back to Orua's speech. What was going on there?
Once again, we saw that those ACT-leaning members of the National Party using its former chosen leader to actually herald up into the public arena some of the concerns that are going on in behind the scenes. Obviously, and you hear it from Cam too, that there is dissatisfaction with Key still aligning to the Bill English centrist type of economic policy.
Left of centre.
Well, there's an indication of how it's
So
you've got
broad
Don
National
Brash from outside Parliament used as some sort of iconic litmus test type spokesperson of where the party is. It's strategic.
So you are still arguing that National is a big blue tent, that it's large enough to encompass everyone. Is this the
people
argument?
who are more left-wing than Phil Goff and David Cunliffe.
That's not difficult to find, though.
Like Simon Power, for example, right? You've got pinkos like him and Nick Smith and Bill English, all the way through to, and Don Brash isn't even in Parliament.
So why was Don Brash attacking Key? So why was he?
Stephen
Joyce.
Stephen Joyce, he's probably
why was Don Brash attacking Key?
He's a private citizen. He can say what he wants. He just happens to be a member of the National Party. He holds no office.
Yeah, but he was a former leader, for God's sakes. You can't just say, he's just some guy out in the street.
It was a message.
It's a message, wasn't it?
It says that the communication between those factions is not that good.
That's a message
that
that I get from people who bump into me at the chemist shop or the supermarket and say, we all were hoping for a bit of change and what we got is more of the same. Ugh. There's a brown bread feeling out there in some respects on particularly in social policy areas, and particularly in areas that they think that National hasn't addressed the things that they promised that they were going to do.
If they distributed the wealth more evenly, perhaps they would sway more of the centrist
You'll make
vote.
him ill. Don't say redistribution of wealth. I can't wait for Don Presh to claim that Vikings actually settled New Zealand first.
They did, didn't they?
Final word, quick. Who wins? Who loses by Key's policy releases?
Well, we media and we analysts kind of benefit from this
Yep.
because we've got some information finally of where National is actually
It
positioning
takes the power
itself.
away from the
Also,
power.
it puts Labor not necessarily as the main opposition party in the back seat. It puts
Right.
it in the front seat and being able to start to display if it has any cleverness in a retaliatory kind of statement to this type of move.
Who wins? Who loses?
Well, I think the public wins in a whole lot of different ways. One is that, and this is probably where some of the media are getting a little upset, and perhaps not us. It's because this sort of information has largely been the domain of the gallery. And the gallery are kind of being superseded now. The days where you sat there and listened to what went on in Parliament and then intoned that.
Although this live type of opportunity was organised by Vernon Small, and it's obviously a senior member
Which
of
is
the gallery.
unusual, you know. I mean, he's probably hoping to trip up John Key, being a pinko himself.
I don't know. I think it was an
Thank you.
initiative that's worth checking out.
Thank you, panel. Coming up, why does the Minister of Transport, Stephen Joyce, hate rail so much? Was he attacked by Thomas the Tank Engine as a child? Citizen A is back after the break.